We've got to keep talking about these offshore wind projects. There's great hope of offshore wind saving the country because I think this stuff is outrageous. It's going to be incredibly expensive, all sorts of environmental consequences, and of course we only end up with unreliable renewable energy. Nationals MP and former Resources Minister Keith Pitt joins us again from Bundaberg. And I noticed, Keith, you had the same thought as I had a few weeks ago when they declared this new offshore renewable wind area off the Hunter region in New South Wales, and that is that off the New South Wales coast now, it's the policy of even the Liberal Party, if you can call them that anymore, that you're not allowed to even have a exploration drilling rig for gas or oil or gold or anything else. No drilling rigs, no exploration, but you can have as many thumping great wind turbines out there as you like.
Well, unfortunately, Chris, for the New South Wales government, they don't have control in Commonwealth waters. And you remember the brouhaha about a thing called PEP 11, and that was just an application to maintain a permit which will allow them to then apply for an exploration rig for gas, just one. And now we have a proposal that will allegedly deliver 5,000 megawatts of offshore wind. That is 1,000 turbines at 5 megawatts if they can make them that big, with a capped height, wait for this one, mate, 260 metres high. That is twice the height of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Where are the Greens? Where's the Surf Riders Foundation? Where's the outrage, the tearing of clothes? Nowhere to be seen.
Well, I've spoken a couple of times to the cray fishermen of Port Macdonald at the bottom of South Australia. They're very worried about wind turbines going in there, a project that will take power into Victoria. And we've had whale-watching tourist operators off Newcastle worried about this latest region. Let me just show you a cartoon here from Johannes Leek. It'll be in tomorrow's Australian. It kind of summarises the situation very nicely here. He's got Chris Bowen out there on the wind turbines, and the worker says, "What was that almighty thump?" And Chris Bowen looks down at the whale, the bruised whale, and says, "Just another NIMBY." Yep, we're sticking thousands of these things out in the whale's backyard, and as you say, none of the greenies seem to be worried about it.
Well, it's just outrageous. I mean, an exploration rig, the well's about the size of a kitchen table. You don't have these enormous forces. You imagine how much pressure's on something that's 200 metres high, all of the force of wind or whatever it might be, particularly in a storm, the foundations you have to put in place. And it gets really deep off that coast of the east coast of Australia pretty quickly, especially around Sydney. It gets incredibly deep. That all drives up cost. And there's nothing here to build these things with it yet that I'm aware of, Chris. And they claim that there'll be some 1,600 people who'll be employed into the future permanently to maintain them. Well, 20 years' time, you've got to replace them all.
Yeah, the expense, the unreliability, this has got disaster written all over it. But let me show you some of what Chris Bowen had to say today, because this just does not make sense.
Australia has a great industrial future. Australia will always be a country that makes things. But increasingly under our government, we'll make things in a way which is decarbonised, which is fulfilling our responsibilities to reduce our carbon emissions.
Look, as you know, Keith, we've stopped making things. We don't make cars anymore or white goods and all sorts of things, largely because, not exclusively, but one of the big inputs has been increased power prices. And when he talks about this renewable revolution, all the wind turbines and all the solar panels and all of that stuff's imported from China, where they make it with our coal and iron ore.
Well, that's exactly right. You can't make these things without affordable electricity and gas. You can't be competitive. They are all coming from China. More than 90% of solar panels rely on China for componentry in particular. And now we're going to have something which has to be replaced every 2 decades, offshore, in the ocean. I mean, where are the Greens? Where is this faux outrage? Where are all the independents and the Teals, Chris, who were absolutely doing their pills about PEP 11 and potential for offshore gas, which would actually work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and yet this seems to be acceptable. Well, let's get them down at Manly Beach and we'll put them at Bondi.
Well, the point is here, people see these installations around the country, the solar farms and the wind turbines, the wind farms. To get anywhere near what they're talking about, every time you see one, you have to imagine at least 3 or 4 farms of the same size, right?
Well, that's exactly right. It's enormous. Solar's got a utilisation just over 20%. So to average what you need to install 5 times your actual design size. 5 times. Wind's about 30, 33%, so 3 times as much for them. So sometimes you'll have 5 times as much energy, and sometimes you'll have none, all of which is incredibly expensive. And they keep telling us this is getting prices down, but it's putting prices up.
It sure
and
is.
We are getting more of the same medicine.
Sure is. Thanks for joining us, Keith. I appreciate it.